92 batch. Prasad and me are together. We did MBBS together. So the whole idea here is just to start clinical presentations. I will start you with whatever clinical cases. I think around 20-25 classes we can complete all the cases which can be kept in the exams. We can cover everything. It should not be big issues. So first we'll start with swelling, so that we'll go. I'll tell you because how it has to be presented and basic things. I'll go from the basic. I don't know how much you are trained or anything like that. So don't worry. It might be right from the basic for people who haven't covered anything or not understood anything, or for everyone. I'll start from the basic. So I don't want to go straight away to the advanced things or anything like that. Whatever is needed for your exams, I'll cover it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Sir, this is a case of sebaceous cyst.
Okay.
A 50-year-old male, Mr. Raja, coming from T Nagar, who's a security by occupation, belonging to socio-economic class of lower middle class, came to OP with chief complaints of swelling in the back of right shoulder for past 2 months.
Yeah, hold it there. The problem is in a surgery, a patient can present with only 5 problems. My chief, Professor Mohan, used to tell me surgery is always handful. Okay, a patient in surgery can come only with 5 complaints. 5 complaints they can come with. Either it can be a swelling, ulcer, sinus, fistula, or a deformity. Okay, 5 things: swelling, ulcer, sinus, fistula, or a deformity. In surgery, in exams, 90% of the problem will be swellings mostly. If you go with ulcers, it will cover another 5 to 7%, 8%. Rest of the thing form very few things. So the idea is, if you know how to examine a swelling properly, then it will become very good. Okay, it will be very easy. So you will be covering almost 90%. And again, told you know the 5 presentations might be due to only 5 causes. They can be present only due to 5 causes. My voice is audible, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's clear, no? Right. So it can be due to 5 causes. 5 causes can be a congenital cause, inflammatory, neoplastic, degenerative, or traumatic. So congenital, traumatic, inflammatory. Inflammatory can be acute inflammatory or a chronic inflammatory, neoplastic, which can be benign or malignant, and degenerative. Only 5 causes are there. It can the 5 presentations, they can come with 5 presentation due to 5 causes. If you combine everything, so a swelling due to congenital cause, swelling due to inflammatory cause, then we'll get the diagnosis. If you know the organ of origin, then it becomes very easy. For instance, you have a thyroid swelling. You have, from your examination, everything you have found out is a thyroid swelling, and it is a swelling, and it is due to a benign neoplastic cause. If you have diagnosed from the presentation, then it becomes classmate. 1 minute, hold on a minute.
Okay, sir.
Sorry for the interruption. So the congenital, if you know the swelling is from the thyroid and it is due to a benign neoplastic change, then you know a benign neoplastic swelling in a thyroid can be adenoma only. Then the diagnosis becomes adenoma in the thyroid gland. If it's a well differentiated malignancy in the thyroid, means it becomes a papillary or a follicular carcinoma only. So it is only like this. So you have to whenever you start examining a patient, I will always ask you to project 2 projectors in your mind. 2 projectors. On one side, you will have this swelling, ulcer, sinus, fistula, deformity. Each thing can be, a swelling can be due to congenital, traumatic, inflammatory, neoplastic, or degenerative. Ulcer can be congenital, inflammatory, traumatic, degenerative, or neoplastic. These sort of things can be there. So you have that in one slide. Another slide, if I take a pin in that area and insert it like this, Nachina, what are all the anatomical structures I'm going to cast through? That is what you have to have in another projector. The idea of history taking and examination is we have to slowly eliminate one by one, one by one. So ultimately, you'll have a swelling due to benign neoplastic, and you have the organ here, means then we'll have the diagnosis. This is what is I want you to run. So whenever you are asking history taking, it's not like you have a book where you say, cough, do you have cough? It's night cough or day cough. It's not like that. If you understand how you have to do it, the idea of asking history or examination is to rule this out. We have to confidently strike off whatever is there, whatever is not there. So we keep on eliminating things which is not at all possible. Then ultimately we'll come with one particular thing, say benign neoplastic swelling. In the side, in one swelling due to benign neoplastic, in one projector it will remain. And this side, if it turns out to be thyroid, then we have two things. So benign neoplastic in thyroid, it's going to be adenoma. This is what is our idea about it. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, Fida, you can put your video on also, so it will be easy. I'll be talking to someone, Ramarin.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So here, a 50-year-old man has come with 2 months duration swelling, right?
Yes, sir.
Always there is no thing of shortcuts. You always biodata means name, age, sex, occupation, and residence. All these things you include there, so that we have each and everything. All of you would have gone through it. I'll just name is for identity. Age will say 50 years. Do you expect a congenital swelling for 2 months? We
No,
don't
sir.
expect it. So that is what the age will tell us. The residence, again, residence epidemic or epidemic diseases or a socio-economic state, all these things will be, say you have a hilly region or endemic region, or the patient is living close to a nuclear reactor, there is a radioactive exposure chances are very high, these sort of things. Only the occupation, again, long-standing occupation can have varicose veins, these sort of things. That's why we need the occupation also. All these things would have been known by you, so we'll go this. Now, chief complaint, again, chief complaint would be the main complaint which is there for which he has come to the hospital. Okay, here he has come in the swelling in the back of the right shoulder, right? So this is the chief complaint for him. It is for 2 months. Again, I'll repeat, these are all things you will know. You always present in a chronological order. The longer duration symptom will go to the top and the shorter duration will follow it. So this has to be followed always. That should not, if there is only one complaint, it's fine. If there are 2 or 3 chief complaints, that also can be put it in a chronological order, right? Right now, this patient, we have this swelling, ulcer, sinus fistula. What is it? Obviously, they have come for swelling. So ulcer, sinus fistula, you can always rule it out. So it can be, there are other 5 possibilities there: congenital, inflammatory, neoplastic, traumatic, and degenerative. So these are all the possibilities. So degenerative, 2 months is clear, too early. So we'll have all these things in this side. This side, say right in the right back. Back means exactly where, ma? Right shoulder?
Sir,
Over the scapula or anything like that? Or where?
sir, actually specific, it's not mentioned like that.
Right, okay. We'll take some, say, right back, which over the scapular region. If I take a pin and pierce that area, what are all the anatomical structure present there? It can be a skin, subcutaneous tissue, then you have the muscles, the bone, scapula is there, then you have the intercostal muscles and the ribs are there, and if you go deeper, it can be lungs, pleura, lungs, everything. So that is what all the anatomical structures going to be there. So we have to eliminate one by one. Probably for Sebastian it may be superfluous, but I just want you to get into the thought process, so that it will be not, the exam is only a part of thing. You will be going there, exams and whatever case you are presenting, and you get through it. But if you get through this process, it will help you in diagnosing all the patient over a period of time. When you sit in your clinic, it's not passing exam is only a part of the aim there. Rest of the things, you have to sit in the clinic and the patient will be coming in, showing you, they're coming with complaints, and you have to be able to diagnose these things. That is the whole idea about the clinical examination, right? So here, swelling in the right side of the back for the past 2 months, right? Okay, go ahead.
The patient was apparently normal 2 months back, after which he noticed swelling in the back of right shoulder. Duration for 2 months. It was insidious in onset, progressive in nature, Initially, it was small in size and attained the present size gradually.
Okay.
No history of pain or discharge, no history of ulceration or fungation, no history of trauma, fever, no history of evening rise of temperature, no history of loss of weight, loss of appetite, no history of restriction of movement, no history of any other swelling elsewhere in the body.
Right? We hold it there. History of presenting illness. Everybody happy with this? Yeah. Okay. It is always whenever there is a chief complaint. Whenever there is a chief complaint, you have to elaborate in 5 headings. Each complaint has to be elaborated in 5 headings. You might be seeing again and again, I'm saying 5, 5, 5. So it is always, surgery is very, very handful. You can, everything is in your hand only. 5 heading. So first is the mode of onset and duration. Mode of onset tells you if it is very short duration, it can be an acute condition. If within a week, within 1 day or 2 days, more than a week or anything, we call subacute. More than a month or anything, we call it as chronic. Okay, so this initial period is a mode of onset and duration is be your first question for any chief complaint. That would be then would be the progress. Progress tells you how frequently, how quickly you have to diagnose and treat the patient. Suppose a problem is evolving within 24 hours, it's becoming worse and worse and worse, means that means you have very little time to treat the diagnose it and treat the patient. If it's there for over a period of years or anything like that, you have all the time in the world to diagnose, do all the tests, make the diagnosis and treat them also. So it is not a worry. So whole thing is mode of onset and duration will be the first thing. Mode of onset, is it a sudden onset or is it a onset which she has covered? Then the duration she has covered. Then is the progress of the disease. Third would be the description of the symptom. Again, swelling and ulcer, patient will not describe you anything, but cough, pain, fever, these sort of symptoms, patient will be able to describe you in detail, like pain, type of pain, character of pain, migrating, radiating, aggravating, relieving factor, any precipitating factor, radiation to somewhere, migration, all these things can be there. So description for ulcer and sinus, ulcer or swelling, patient may not be able to do it, but other symptoms can be done. Then is the associated relevant illness. Associated relevant illness is a place where you will know what are all the, it is a free pass for you to ask whatever doubts you have in mind. The patient has come with a swelling in the back. So it can be, I told you, know, what are all the anatomics there, skin, subcutaneous tissue, fat, bone, muscle, bone, everything it has, up to lungs, it can be there. So what has to be done? So you ask questions based on that. Okay, so this associated relevance helps us to get more depth into the complaint of the patient. Okay, and the fifth would be the treatment history. So each chief complaint, if you have this in your mind, the 5 questions has to be answered for each and everything. That is mode of onset and duration, progress of the disease, description of the symptom, and then associated relevant illness and treatment. These are all the things you have to ask for each chief complaint. I think she did a fairly good job here. Say here, why did you think of ulceration and fungation, ma?
Sir, to rule out any chance of tumor,
Ulceration, tumor only ulcerates?
not just tumor, sir, but
If in case you have told me it's a sebaceous case straight away. So yeah, sebaceous which has become abscess, it bursts out and then it also can form an ulcer, right? So ulceration or fungation, it's a term definitely reserved for malignancy, but not necessarily ulceration can be inflammatory or malignancy also, right? Okay, then trauma, definitely you want to know whether after trauma, what are all the swellings that can happen in shoulder after a trauma? Normally, it can be a hematoma. That's all. You get hit, you bump against some wall or somebody hit you or anything like that. Then there might be a swelling formed, which might be a contusion or a hematoma might be formed. Contusion means it will be there for a week and 2 days and it will go off. 1 week or 2 weeks. But if it's a hematoma, this might be there. Usually it will get reabsorbed. Suppose it's not reabsorbing, it might be there for a very long period of time. Why did you ask for evening rise of temperature?
sir, any tuberculosis?
Yes, evening rise of temperature. Why you are specifically worried about evening rise of temperature?
So it is more prominent in TV, like it's like a specific.
All of you should understand one thing. Our body temperature is little bit high in the evening due to the circadian rhythms. The steroid secretion in our body varies from time to time. In the evening, little bit high, so their temperature might be little bit on the higher side in the evening. So when in conditions like tuberculosis, where there is low grade of inflammation, chronic low grade of inflammation is going on, so this temperature, this might cause minimal inflammation, which will increase the temperature that they may feel it as fever in the evening alone. It may not be very high to be felt as fever in other points of time. So evening rise of temperature means immediately it's followed by night sweats. Usually remember that. Because they have temperature, once the body thermoregulatory mechanism kicks in, the temperature is cooled down, they precipitate with sweats in the night. So evening rise of temperature and night sweats, or you have to rule out a tuberculosis. Okay, right, next. And what about the loss of weight and loss of appetite?
Again, to rule out mostly chance of tumor or cancer.
Tumor or cancer, right? Okay. Any loss of weight, loss of appetite can be there in malignancy or a chronic inflammatory diseases. Both the things in tuberculosis, like tuberculosis, the loss of weight, loss of appetite might be there, and in malignancy also loss of weight, loss of appetite. Where can you have loss of weight with increased appetite?
Thyrotoxicosis.
Yes, only exception is the thyroid diseases where you might have a loss of appetite with increased loss of weight with increased appetite and gain of weight with loss of appetite. These sort of things can happen. Okay, and restriction of movement. What restriction of movement you think of in the back?
Due to fixity to
Right. Classic. Okay, what about the restriction of movement? Means restriction of movement of the swelling or restriction of the joint you are talking about?
sir of the joint.
Yeah, that is where I just wanted to clarify that. Restriction of movement means if you think it is over the joint, the swelling is restricting the joint movement or not. Here, if it is back, there is no question of movement in the back or anything like that. So that is not needed here. Okay, any other swelling in the body? Why do you want to ask about any other swelling in the body?
Sir, to see if this is one specific swelling or if it is due to some other generalized.
What are all the swelling, multiple swelling, similar swellings can happen? What are all things you can know?
Neurofibroma.
Neurofibroma, exactly. Somebody told it. Yes, multiple neurofibromatosis, similar swellings present everywhere. That's one thing. Next.
Lipomas.
Multiple lipomas. Yes, multiple lipomas can present like that. Sebaceous also, multiple sebaceous can be there. Yes, anything else? Okay, so yes, ma'am.
Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Lymphoma, yes, lymph nodes. But in the back, do you expect lymphoma swelling to be there? Lymph node to be there?
No.
Yeah, the back is not usually the site for lymph node enlargement. You have a neck, axilla, groin, or these are the sites we have lymph nodes, but not in the back usually, right? Okay. So this is what is idea. Here, don't worry about the sebaceous. If it's a short case, you don't have to be so detailed about the existence. Just because we are starting, I just want you to get used to the history taking, how well we are going to go to this. Each question you are asking in the chief complaint, it has to be done to rule out something or to add on something. You have to get to a specific diagnosis. We have to just keep on asking the questions. Should be useful. It's not just like that I have to ask 5 questions. It's not like that. We have to ultimately we have to rule out what is the problem, right? Okay, next.
Past history, no history of similar complaint in the past, no history of previous surgery or hospitalization, no history of diabetes mellitus, hypertension, TB, asthma, epilepsy or jaundice, no history of blood transfusion.
Yes, again, here a past history, we want few things to be done for all the past histories. First is any history of major hospitalization for the major medical or surgical event. Any history in the past, they might have fever, cough, all of them would have had something. But admission for the hospital, you want to know any history of hospitalization for any major medical or surgical event. That might have that might have a consequence now in this patient. It might be or it might not be. That is the important thing you will ask. Next would be that whether the patient is aware of his diabetic or hypertensive status. Many of us, we always say not a known diabetic, not a known hypertensive, like that. Not a known means it's a very, whether he is aware of his diabetic or hypertensive status means not known means maybe two things. Either he has not tested it at all and he doesn't know about it, or he has tested it and he doesn't have it. So not a known is not the right word. Ideally would be, I would prefer is a not aware of his diabetic or hypertensive status, because he may not be tested. If he has tested and he knows that he is not diabetic, you can say he is not a diabetic, not a hypertensive or anything like that. And the next, the previous surgery always helps us to give us any pointer to the right. Again, sebaceous, it may not be there. Sebaceous, maybe they might have had an abscess, they might have drained it before, and the IND might have been done, and the swelling might have recurred. These sort of things might be there. But again, it's not there. For past history, generally, any history of hospitalization for any major or medical surgical illness, and then the any chronic histories like diabetes mellitus, hypertension, all these things helps us to ascertain the general, to know about the general condition of the patient, systemic condition of the patient. The past history, the history of present illness is like doing a good local examination. Likewise, past history, if you do it nicely, it gives you the good general examination of the patient, right? Okay, next. Past history and personal history together, sorry, past history and personal history together will give you a good general examination. Yes, go to personal.
Personal history, he consumes non-veg diet, normal bowel and bladder habits, not a smoker, not an alcoholic.
Yes, again, in personal history, first I would always ask is whether there is loss of appetite and loss of weight. If you add it, if you have done it before, it's fine. But all the time personal history will know to know whether there is past history of whether appetite and loss of weight and loss of appetite is good, and then whether he consumes both vegetarian non-vegetarian diet or only vegetarian diet, that would help us. And then the bowel and bladder habits, smoking, alcohol, these all gives you whether a patient has any systemic problem possibility complicating this local problem. Okay, again, in sebaceous, these may not be needed, but I'm just telling as a swelling as a general, I'm just asking you to go through this way. Right? Next, families.
Family history, no relevant family history.
Again, sebaceous is not going to have any relevant family history. But when you are doing a proper family history, always two things has to be done. What is the idea of taking family history? Now? Whether there is any genetic or hereditary basis for this disease. That is basically genetic disease. Next is there any environmental influence in this disease? That is the second thing you want to know. So whenever you are doing family history, who are all the important genetically closest? Genetically closest would be your siblings. Always the patient's siblings will have chance of, if it's identical twin, the chance of genetic similarity is around 100%. If it is non-identical twins or a separate, the chances might be 0 to 100%. And father and mother and offsprings will carry 50 up to 50% of similarity might be there in the father and mother or their children. So always look at these people, will give you whether any genetic possibility of this disease is there. That's one thing. And environment in the sense, suppose a patient might, a relative who's distantly, say, grandfathers, uncles, nephews, granddaughter is staying with you. That means he may not be genetically related, but he is living with you in the same room or in the same hostel. Chance of, if he has a TB, you can also have a TB. So the chance of environmental influence is there. So that is why the family history is there. Family history, when we are asking whether there is any genetic basis or environmental basis for the disease, that we want to find out from the family history. Right? Next. Yes, ma'am.
General examination.
Okay.
Patient was examined after getting prior consent. The patient is conscious, oriented, moderately built and nourished. No pallor, no icterus, no cyanosis, no clubbing, no pedal edema or generalized lymphadenopathy.
Okay. Right? Again, conscious oriented. Without conscious and oriented, you wouldn't have given you so much of history all this while. If you had given so much of all, definitely you would have been conscious and oriented. So don't worry about conscious oriented unless you are talking about the neurological examination. Conscious oriented may not be a necessary, but I don't object to this. But remember that if he is not the patient has given you all this opinion means history means that he is conscious and oriented. Built and nourishment. Built and nourishment tells you something. If the patient built is not good, he is have a thin build, moderately built, or a well-built individual might be there. The build gives you the skeletal framework. The skeletal framework tells you whether there is any chronic malnourishing disease. If the patient is childhood itself, their nourishment is affected, or the disease which is running for a very long years, then the build might be affected. But nourishment is the muscle mass. You are looking at the muscle mass. The muscle mass is decreased. The build is good, but the muscle mass is less means that means he is being affected by some catabolic disease, some disease which is there for some period of time. That is what we are looking at. Okay, so this is what is built and nourishment tells us. Pallor, icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, pediatrium, all of you know, I think I've covered everything. This is important for all the general examination. We have to look through all these things. That is covered, right? Next.
Vitals, pulse rate is 74 per minute.
Hello.
Normal in volume, regular in rhythm, no specific character. Sir? Hello?
Hello, yes, continue.
Vitals, pulse rate is 74 per minute, normal in volume, regular in rhythm, no specific character, no radial or radiofemoral delay, felt in all peripheral pulses. Respiratory rate is 16 per minute, regular and thoracoabdominal type. Blood pressure is 120/80 in right upper arm in sitting posture. Temperature is febrile.
Yes, again, vitals, you check it and write it. That would be the good idea of doing it. Most of the time, short case, okay, it will be 74, 76, we'll put it off some like that, we'll do it. But remember that whenever in general examination, you might have said pallor is present. And then you write it as 74 per minute, then it is not correct. So you, if it is anemia is there, patient is having severe pallor, the pulse rate will be very high. It won't be normal. It would have been raised. Again, the blood pressure will not be, the pulse pressure is 120/80 means 40 pulse pressure is there. If the patient is anemic or something like that, then the pulse, it will be something like 140/70. The pulse pressure will start widening if it is anemic or something like that. So remember that just like that, making up the blood pressure or a pulse rate without examining might land you in trouble in very rare cases. So better to check it up. Whenever you are saying anemia, check the pulse rate. You can't be having a pallor. You are telling patient is pale and then you can say 70 pulse rate. Nah, that doesn't go well. So always check up once more that whether it is matching. This is very, very important, not only in surgery, anywhere you do, this is very, very important. Right, go ahead.
Local examination. After getting consent from patient and exposing him adequately, the patient was examined under bright light. Inspection, a single swelling approximately 3 into 4 centimeter in size, ovoid shape present in the back of right shoulder. Extent, superiorly 4 centimeter from acromion process, inferiorly 7 centimeter from acromion process, fold, laterally 4 centimeter from posterior axillary fold, and medially 7 centimeter from midline. Surface is smooth, skin over swelling is normal with punctum, no scar, sinuses or dilated veins, no visible pulsation, no visible lymph node.
Yeah, this swelling is fairly straightforward. You will reach the diagnosis very easily. But remember, whenever there is swelling is examined, always remember you go to the DAS or anything like that, take it, and you have to have an order of thinking. Say, if you ask me, wake me up in the middle of the night, what are all the things you will see in the inspection of this swelling, sir? I'll say size, shape, surface, skin, swelling, surrounding, such age, number, pulsatility, cough impulse. You ask me again, I will say size, shape, surface, skin, swelling, surrounding structures, age, number, pulsatility, cough impulse. I'll repeat it again and again and again anytime you ask me. Why I'm telling you this is, this gives you an algorithm in your mind, and whenever you are presenting without any paper or anything like that, you have a presentation which you can read it out. Suppose that it helps you in two ways. One thing is, if you go in an order, the chance of missing any finding is very, very less, number one. Number two is when you are reproducing after examination, it will come in the same order. So in the examination, in the tension, you will not miss out any finding when you are telling it. So always have a sequence, and you have your sequence and have it ready, and you always go through that sequence. I say right side shape, surface, skin, nose, swelling, surrounding structure, edge, number, cough, pulse, means I'll tell you the same order any day, anytime, anytime. So this is a habit which has been brought to in us. This was taught to us by Professor Mohan Rao when I was doing my clinical year in third year. He always asks us to write it in a paper. What are all the things you look at inspection of swelling? What you will see, palpation? What will you see? He'll ask us to write and come there, and he'll get the paper with him in his hand, and he'll ask us to send one by one. At the time, we thought it was very funny. What is the big deal? Why should I say this? What is if you tell correctly, the whole class should give chocolate to that person. And if I miss out anything or jumble anything, I have to give chocolates to everyone. This is the task we used to do us for the third year. So I thought it was very funny. But later on, when I progressed in my MBBS, it helped us a lot. Whenever I go and see the exam, I don't have to. We keep the DAS, what we normally do in the DAS, because I have seen my friends, everybody doing like that. 1 minute, I'll collect the charger. Okay, sorry, charger was. Okay. Whenever I do it, it goes through my mind. It goes aside. I have to see shape. I don't. Many of them, what you do, you would have seen your friends also doing that. They'll have das on. Hey, side is there. Shape is there. You keep on doing that. See the book or a presentation format will be there. You see shape. Shape is there. A shape round. Right. Okay. Surface. We keep on doing that. It need not be done. When it's there in your mind, you will do all these things. It will not miss. It will be a very, very good exercise if you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. Then it is. So you have covered pretty well most of the signs, size, shape, everything, extent, everything is been covered here. So do you expect a cough impulse here?
No, sir.
Not. Maybe on the thorax, back, communication with the thoracic cavity can have a cough impulse. So remember that. But if it's over the scapula, you may not have cough impulse. Whatever you are describing, it looks like over the scapula. So it may not be needed or anything like that. Okay. Yes. What is the key finding here? You have a smooth surface and you have a punctum. Punctum, what does the punctum denote?
Opening of a duct.
Yes, it's opening into the, usually where there's a, where you don't see punctum.
Palms and soles.
Hello?
Palms and soles.
Palms and soles, right? Then why you don't see in palms and soles?
Because there's no hair follicular or something.
No oil glands in the palms and soles. But in the scalp, when you have a sebaceous cyst, do you see a punctum there? Punctum may not be seen in all the cases because sebaceous can open directly in the skin. In that case, you will have a punctum, or sometimes it opens into the hair follicle. If it opens to the hair follicle, you may not be seeing the punctum. Okay, that is the answer. When you are not seeing all the cases of sebaceous, you need not see punctum at all. Some cases there will not be any punctum at all because the hair sebaceous might be opening into the hair follicle. Okay, right. Pulsation. What visible pulsation you expect here? Do you expect any major blood vessel going there?
No, sir.
Why do you want to see pulsation?
Sir, to see if there will be any constriction to a vessel in case it is close to a vessel.
Is there anything in the back? We'll restrict to our case now. Why do you want to see pulsation in a swelling generally?
To assess close.
Pulsation may be.
So you can.
It can be two things, either a direct pulsation or indirect pulsation. Direct is if it is a capped arterial hemangioma or a swelling arising from a blood vessel, aneurysm or a hemangioma, arterial strawberry hemangioma, anything like that, then the pulsation might be there on its own. Or the swelling is related to a major vessel, it might be, the pulsation might be transmitted. So two types of pulsation might be there. But here in the back, over the scapula, we don't expect any major blood vessels. So we are not looking at the indirect pulsation here. Here, the possibility could be a hemangioma or anything. We are capillary arterial hemangioma or a AV malformations, arteriovenous malformations, which can be there, which can have pulsations. That is what we are looking at. Right, next. No visible lymph node, no visible lymph node. Where are you looking at?
Axillary.
Yeah, you are talking about the regional lymph node you are talking about. Because the swelling is in the back, where are you going to, you have written as no visible lymph node. Where are you going to look at the lymph node here?
Sir, axillary and maybe supraclavicular.
There are something called as, you should have watershed lines in the body. There are water, remember, a man is standing erect, drawing over the clavicle. I draw a line over the clavicle and the next line at the umbilical level. Body is divided into three regions basically. The whatever lymphatic drainage above the clavicle, I'm talking about the skin and subcutaneous tissue and the muscle component, whatever above the clavicle drains to the cervical lymph nodes. Below, between the clavicle and the umbilicus, the lymphatic drainage goes to the axillary lymph nodes. And below the umbilicus, it goes to the inguinal region. Are you clear? So whenever you are thinking about the regional lymph nodes, remember that two lines dividing the body into three layers. There won't be any crossover of lymphatics from the supraclavicular to the infraclavicular. Okay, if the region is between the clavicle and the umbilicus, then it will between the umbilicus and the clavicle, it will go to the axillary region. Above the clavicle to the cervical region. Below the umbilicus, it will go to the inguinal region. The lymphatics. So right and left can little bit cross over in the midline, right and left side. So right half of the chest will go to the right axillary. Left half of the chest go to the left axillary. But right in the midline, there might be little bit crossover. But in the clavicle and the umbilicus, it follows a strict watershed line. The usually transmission may not happen. So either you are looking at axillary or the cervical, depending on the location. Okay. Right. So it is, you are looking at regional lymph node, it was not there. Yes, proceed.
Palpation. The skin over swelling is not warm, not tender. Inspectory finding of size, shape and extent are confirmed.
Why do you are looking at warmth and tenderness?
Sir, warmth is usually present in case of blood vessel.
Warmth is signs of inflammation you are looking at. We told you, no, congenital, 50-year-old men, congenital not a possibility. Inflammatory possibility, neoplastic possibility. Degenerative 50 years is too early for degenerative disease. Traumatic, no history of trauma, no out. So it can be now whatever we are talking is an inflammatory swelling or a degenerative swelling. Sorry, neoplastic swelling. Okay. Warmth is inflammation. What is inflammation?
So inflammation is when there is inflammatory mediators come and
simple thing. Inflammation means host response to an injury, insult. Host response to an insult. It might be, most of them inflammation, everybody will say infection. It's not like that. Infection is one cause of inflammation. Okay, if I pour acid there, that area becomes red and burning thing happens. That is also an inflammation. Okay, so host response to an insult is inflammation. So it might be infection, non-infection, whatever it is, it can be there. So there are 5 signs of inflammation. All of you would know. So Calor, Ruber, Dolor, tumor, and functionalisa. All of you would have read in pathology. Calor is temperature. Okay, and Dolor is pain. So warmth and tenderness, you are looking whether there is signs of inflammation is there or not. When you start handling it, the local temperature of the area might decrease or increase or decrease based on your handling. That's why before, right at the start of palpation, you look for the temperature and the tenderness. So tenderness, why you are looking at now, if the swelling is tender, you have to handle it very, very, very gently. You cannot handle it severely. It will cause pain. Patient will not cooperate with you. All this. You want to assess the tenderness so that you can be gentle with the swelling. Okay, so not warm, not tender. It is, you want to rule out the signs of inflammation is there or not. Next.
Surface is smooth, margin is well defined, mobile, consistency is soft, Skin over swelling is not pinchable.
Margin or edge swelling, which you want to do?
Edges.
Why do you want to, what does edge says? A well-defined edge and ill-defined edge. What do you mean by that?
Sir, normally irregular edges are seen in case of neoplastic.
Irregular edges or irregular surface? Edge is basically to know whether it's a solid swelling or a cystic swelling. You see the phone is here. I know the edge is ending here. When I go and touch it, I know this is the edge is ending here. I'm able to see a well-defined edge here. Suppose I fill a balloon with water. I'll know that the balloon is ending here. So when I go and try to touch it, that area will yield a little bit and it will move a little bit. The edge is not defined clearly. Okay, that's what we want to make out, whether it's a well-defined edge or an ill-defined edge. This is what we want to make out, whether it's a solid swelling or a cystic swelling. That is what is, the surface becomes smooth now. That means it's a chance of malignancy is less. That's what we can say. Irregular might be there in malignancy, but edge part of it, you see edge of a table, edge of a chair, edge of some solid object, you will be able to make it out. But if it is a cystic swelling, balloon filled with water or something like that, you know the balloon is, the edge is here, but when you go try and touch it, what will happen is it will move a little bit. So you feel it is there, but you are not able to define it where exactly it is ending. That is what is called as ill-defined edge. When you are talking about a cystic swelling, chances of looking at the edge is important. Next.
Consistency is soft.
Yes.
Skin over swelling is not pinchable. Sign of molding is present. It's non-fluctuant, non-transluminant, not compressible, reducible, no pulsatile or expansile pulsation, no lymph node palpable, neurovascular system is normal.
Okay. Before going to neurovascular system, I don't know why it has come to the general local examination. I'll come to that later. Go to the previous slide. The moment you see the consistency is soft, what will be the next thing? Whether it is solid or cystic. That is what you want to make out. Correct? You have any swelling for that matter, whether it's solid swelling, fully comprised of cells, say 1 million cells are packed together, it is a solid thing. Suppose a cell balloon filled with water, that also can be soft. So a swelling can be soft or half, three consistency only you are supposed to say, soft, firm or hard. Soft, usually you say lip is soft, your nose is firm and your forehead is hard, to just know about it. So when you are talking about hard swelling, we are invariably talking about cancerous swelling or a bony swelling or a swelling with the wall, cyst wall with calcified cyst wall, all these things are there. Then we are talking about hard swelling. Otherwise, we are dealing with most of the time soft and firm only. Soft and firm doesn't mean most of the time soft another cystic. No, say if you have a balloon filled with water under tremendous pressure, it will be soft only. Suppose I fill a football with water. What will happen? It can be firm also, or a swelling which is tensely, it is packed nice. Water fluid is filled to under extreme pressure, like in a very big hydrocele or anything like that. The swelling can still be firm and still be cystic also. So the moment you say consistency is soft, firm, but next would be I would always go to the fluctuation. Even though you have mentioned again, go for fluctuation. What is the size of this swelling? What is the size of the swelling?
3 into 4 centimeters.
3 into 4 centimeters. What test will you do to examine fluctuation in this? Fluctuation tells us whether it is a solid swelling or a cystic swelling. So if it is a 3 into 4 centimeter size swelling, how will you check for fluctuation?
So first we'll hold to the vertical, like we'll place our fingers on the two horizontal vertical extremes and try to move it in the vertical direction. And then we'll...
For a small swelling, is it possible? Is there any special way to look for fluctuation in a smaller swelling? Anybody else can answer.
Sir, by simply pressing the swelling at the center, we can elicit the fluctuation.
What is that? Just simply pressing in the center.
Paget's test.
Paget's test.
Paget's
Paget's
test.
test is very, very important. I'll draw it here. If you are able to see it or not, I'll just see. A swelling is like this, means it is filled with fluid. So what we usually do is we fix the swelling. First, in Paget's test, how we have to do is you fix the swelling between two fingers, either index and middle finger like given in DAS, or between your thumb and index finger. You just basically fix the swelling so you feel the edge of the swelling, and then you press it at the summit of the swelling. If the summit is at the top of the swelling, if the swelling is fixed like this, you press it from the middle, right in the middle. If the middle part is softer than the periphery, then it is a cystic swelling. If the center is hard more than the periphery, center is firm than the periphery, then it is solid swelling. So how it happens now, suppose you have this swelling, you have a swelling here. It is filled with water, means if I hold it, the water will be restricted here. When I press it, this area will yield a little bit. So it will be softer, but here it will not yield because the fluid will be there. Because of gravity, it will be there. So you will be still feeling the firmness here. But here, the swelling will be yielding here a little bit. So that is why it will feel as a soft. But suppose if it's a hard swelling, means whole thing is a suppose it's a hard swelling, the whole thing will be a solid thing. Here it will be softer, but when you press it, it will not expand here. It will not expand down. So you will feel firmer in the center than the periphery. This is what is called as Paget's test. For small swellings, we always do Paget's test. We don't do the routine fluctuation test. Remember that, it's very, very important. So next, here it's a sebaceous cyst you have mentioned. You said it is soft, but not fluctuant. How can you explain it? Then it can be cyst then.
Sir?
Yes, cyst means it has to be fluctuant, right? What was your diagnosis?
Sebaceous cyst.
Sebaceous cyst. But yes, you are saying soft, but fluctuating swelling is not fluctuant. Then can it be a cyst?
Yes, sir.
How can be?
So actually, sebaceous cyst won't be fluctuant and it will not be skin pinchable.
Well, I'll come to that later. Yes, cyst has to be, means a fluid containing cavity. It is filled with fluid-filled swelling is a cyst. That's what we are talking about. It has to be fluctuant. A cyst, it has to be fluctuant. You are saying it's non-fluctuant. Still, we are going with sebaceous cyst. How can you explain this?
Sir, it contains cheesy material instead of fluid.
That is where the next thing comes. Sign of molding present here. Okay, here it contains the pultaceous material, the sebum, which is cheesy material. Usually, when you press it, it molds like thing. It is not fluid like that in the cyst. Here it is little bit more. That is why the sign of molding comes. When there is molding, you cannot elicit a fluctuation. You can't say, suppose you in exam, why I brought out this point now, you can't say in the exam it is fluctuant and it is moldable also. It can be either moldable or fluctuant only. When you are saying the molding is present now, that means it is not fluctuant. If it is fluctuant, now it cannot be moldable. Fluctuant means the fluid is easily displacing from one place to other. That is what fluctuation tells us. That means when you apply pressure on one side, the fluid is getting displaced by the displaced finger, goes to the other place where the palpating finger will feel that displacement. That is the fluctuation. If it is molding now with your pressure, that becomes the shape changes, but the fluid is not displaced. So never say molding is present and fluctuation is also present. Here it is written very correctly, molding is present, but not fluctuant. Okay, you understand that? So again, transillumination, whenever you do consistency, next thing would be fluctuation, next thing would be transillumination. When you say fluctuation is present, then transillumination becomes important. If it is, when you say non-fluctuant, transillumination becomes superfluous. Why do you want to look at a solid swelling? Like, can any swelling, solid swelling be transilluminant? No, it cannot be there. When you say it is not fluctuant, then transillumination question does not arise at all. When the swelling is fluctuant, we want to see whether the fluid contained in the cavity is clear fluid or turbid fluid. Clear fluid means it will permit the light waves to travel through that, and you will have a transillumination. If it is turbid fluid, it will not allow the light to travel through and you will not have transillumination. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Compressible and reducible. Yes.
It is not compressible and reducible.
What is difference between compressibility and reducibility?
So compressibility means when you apply pressure, it gets reduced partially, and reducible means when you apply pressure, it gets reduced completely. And one that you compress, it cannot. It will reappear, but one that is reduced, it will not reappear on its own, except without
Yeah,
an.
you have covered it rightly. So when you apply the pressure, the swelling, first criteria for compressibility or reducibility is when you apply pressure, size of the swelling should reduce partially or completely. It should reduce completely or partially. Compressible also sometimes if you have an hemangioma means when you compress it, the whole thing might disappear also. So not necessarily partially. First criteria will be on application of pressure, the swelling in decrease in size or decrease in size partially or completely disappear. That should be the first criteria for both compressible and reducibility. Where it changes compressibility and reducibility, immediately on removing the pressure, the swelling reappears on its own without any effort from the patient, then it is a compressible swelling. Suppose patient, some effort is from like coughing or standing up or something is done, then only the swelling reappears from with some effort from the patient, the swelling reappears, then it is called as reducible swelling. Okay, you understand that? Yes. Next is the pulsation and expansile pulsation and pulsatility. Again, we want to rule out hemangioma, right? Yes. Next.
No lymph node palpable, neurovascular system is normal.
What neurovascular system you're looking at here? Again, this is done as a blind thing from Das or anything like that. Just carried over. In the back, what you want, if it is in the arm means, if you are thinking that a swelling is compressing on the nerve, swelling is arising from the blood vessel or arising from the nerves, then you are looking at any distal neurovascular deficit. The nerve sensation is lost, or the swelling is pressing on the blood vessel and pulsation is decreased. These sort of things you are thinking about, then you can think about it. In the back, there is nothing you can do, but in the limbs, you can do that. You understand that? Right. Next.
Systemic
So
examination.
other examination is going to be normal. So you don't have to tell so many things. Other systems for short case, it may not be needed. But again, whenever you are going to a system examination, whichever is closest, here it's back. So I will put respiratory system first, abdomen will come next. Okay. Whenever you're going to other system examination, whichever system is closest related to your pathology site will be. If I am taking of hernia, then I look at abdomen first. Then come to the chest. Suppose a swelling, the same sebaceous is present in the abdomen, I'll go to this. So now here you go back to the local examination. Have you understood? I have used a pinchable. Skin is not pinchable. Everywhere it is not pinchable, or somewhere it will be pinchable.
So it won't be pinchable.
Everywhere. Remember that skin might not be pinchable only at the site of punctum, where the punctum is attached to the skin there. So you cannot, when you are looking for the plane of the swelling, is very, very important, any swelling. So here, mobility of the swelling, you have not talked about anything at all. You have written margin well-defined mobile, you have written, right? Okay, yes, I see now. So skin pinchability, other areas skin might be pinchable, but at the site of attachment of punctum, it may not be pinchable, because there it is attached to skin. Rest of the area it is subcutaneous. So you might be able to pinch the skin. So remember that pinchability of skin doesn't rule out a sebaceous. So skin pinchability at the punctum will not be possible in sebaceous. Rest of the area it will be possible. Okay, right. So here, and mobility, you want to check it up. Always mobility, now what will you do? You want to see whether swelling is independently mobile, and then you put the muscles deep to that into contraction, see whether the swelling becomes more prominent or less prominent. And there is any mobility when the muscle is contracted. When the swelling is present over the muscle, when the underlying muscle is put into contraction, the swelling will become more prominent. Okay, and when the muscle is contracted state also, if it's mobile, means it is not attached to the muscle, it is not arising from the muscle. If it is attached to the muscle, now when the muscle is put into contract, the mobility will be restricted. When the muscle is relaxed, it might be mobile. When on putting the muscle into contraction, the mobility is restricted or no movement is there, that means it is attached to the muscle. Here, that you have to check whether the deeper muscle, when you put it contraction, whether it becomes more prominent, that tells you it is superficial to the muscle. When the skin is pinchable, definitely it will be superficial to the muscle only. There is no question about it. Only thing, whether it's attached to the deeper structure, that's what we want to know. So putting the muscle deeper to it into contraction, we see mobility is there. That means it is superficial to the muscle and it is mobile also, not fixed to the muscle. That is what we want. So any swelling for that matter, you want, I told you the projector one is running there, no, the skin, subcutaneous tissue. Here, it is a swelling which is arising from the, if it is pinchable, most of the time it might be subcutaneous tissue, but it is not pinchable at the site of punctum. So it is arising from the skin only. The swelling is arising from the skin, extending into the, and you have a punctum also. What can be, punctum is present, then it means we are dealing with sebaceous. When there is sebaceous, punctum is not visible, the differential diagnosis comes into play. If there is no punctum in your case, what are all the differential diagnoses you look for?
Can be a dermoid cyst.
Dermoid cyst, where all dermoids can happen.
Midline structures.
Midline, the line of fusion of the embryonic fusion line, usually in the midline. Yes. Here is in the right shoulder. So can it be possible? Dermoid is a possibility there.
Lipoma, sir.
Lipoma.
Lipoma, yes. Here the swelling is soft and edge is ill-defined. So lipoma is a possibility, but fluctuation is absent. Should be, lipoma should be absent. It is absent here. It's not fluctuant. Only thing against lipoma here is the molding of the swelling. Molding can happen only in, what are the sebaceous and which other swelling there may be molding? What other swelling can cause moldability? Molding.
Dermoid cyst.
Dermoid, exactly. Dermoid can contain the sebum or everything like that. Dermoid and sebaceous can be moldable, but rest of the swelling will not be moldable. So fluctuation is present the cystina. Only exemption is dermoid and sebaceous, where it can be either fluctuant. If the content of water is more compared to the cheesy material, then it will be only fluctuant, not moldable. If that sebum material is more and it is more pultaceous, then it might be only moldable, not fluctuant. Right? Okay, next. Yes, okay, skip through. All these things are superfluous. Okay, what's your provisional clinical diagnosis? Sebaceous in the back of the right
Back
shoulder,
of
right?
right shoulder.
With complication or without complication?
Without complication.
Yes. What are all the complications you can see of in
Infection, ulceration.
Yes. Infection can cause just induration and edema alone, or it can form an abscess there, right? Number two. Then if it bursts out, it can form an ulceration. Then what else can happen?
Based on site, it can become sebaceous on.
Sebaceous, I'm just anywhere. Usually the chances can happen. When will you get a horn formation? Horn happens whenever the sebum is discharging through the punctum in a very, very tiny quantity and it gets dried up. Slow, very, very minimal, very minimal. If it happens very huge, it will be wiped off by your cloth or anything like that. If it happens very, very slowly, very tiny amount of sebum is, and it gets dried up, they get a sebaceous horn. So sebaceous horn is one of the possibilities. Usually because in the back, we usually, when are sleeping, we move around or anything like that. So we don't allow it to form a horn sort of thing. We usually wipe it off or anything like that when you are rolling around in the bed or anything like that. Chances are a little bit less on the back. Okay, right. Next.
Investigation.
Infection. What are the
Okay.
complications? Infection, abscess, ulceration, horn. You have told. What other things can happen?
Any malignancy, malignant changes.
What malignancy you expect in sebaceous?
Cox peculiar tumor.
Cox peculiar tumor. Is it a malignancy in real sense or anything else?
Um,
Okay, all of you. all of you will go home today and find out and let me know Cox peculiar tumor. Is it really malignancy or non-malignant condition? All of you will go and check it up for me, right? It will be a granulation tissue sort of thing seen in the repeated inflammation. You will see some fleshy thing coming out through this thing. Red fleshy thing will be seen there. It looks like a tumor. So they say Cox peculiar tumor. It's is it malignancy in real sense? All of you will find out. Anybody knows the answer now?
Non-malignant.
Okay, you go home and check it and
Sir,
let me
it
know.
just mimic the fungating epithelioma.
Ah, looks like a fungating growth sort of thing, but it is not a growth. It is more of a exuberant granulation tissue formed in the ulcer, sebaceous cyst ulcer, which sebaceous cyst abscess forming into ulcer, which is there for a long period of time. Exuberant granulation tissue might be there. That is the idea about it. So whenever next is the investigation, you want to investigate. So investigation mean whenever somebody asks what will you do now, I'll do excision. அப்படின்னு சொல்லக்கூடாது. Whenever you say how are you going to manage the case, how are you going to proceed அப்படின்னு கேட்டானா, I'll always investigate and treat. Management involves always investigation and treatment. So never ever say what are you going to do for this na? First I'll investigate. Sir. Okay, investigation over. What will you do actually after investigation? அப்படின்னு கேட்டானா, then you talk about it. So never ever just what will you do now? I'll do excision. That's not going to be the first diagnosis you say. Always, whenever, for any case for that matter, once you give a provisional clinical diagnosis, you want to do how are you going to proceed? How are you going to manage that? First thing would be investigation, then treatment. Investigation, I always divide into three categories. Three categories is one is the baseline investigation. Baseline investigation want to assess the general condition of the patient, like CBC, urea, sugar, creatinine, chest X-ray, ECG, all these things. You want to assess the patient, how well they are doing general. This does not help in confirming your diagnosis. Here it is just done to assess the general condition of patient. This might be needed when you are doing surgery. It will be useful to whether you want to do a general anesthesia or anything like that. Anesthetic purpose also it will be helpful. But first group is baseline investigation. Second is a specific group of investigation. Some tests we do just to confirm your diagnosis, we do certain tests. They come into the specific investigation category. Third investigation, we don't do it in all cases. Suppose it is a malignancy, then we do some tests called as staging investigation. Say it is malignancy means you want to stage whether stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 or anything like that. Then you want to do certain tests to assess the staging of the test. So any investigation, have it in your mind, we have to go. So if it is not malignant, we are going to step with two things only. Here sebaceous is, you want to do any test, you are saying FNAC to confirm the diagnosis. You do FNAC to confirm the patient. It's not needed. All of the time you don't have to do sebaceous and all. We don't do FNAC to confirm the diagnosis or anything. You don't do scans to diagnose sebaceous or anything. Sebaceous are clinical diagnosis. So you do basic tests, hemoglobin, bleeding time, clotting time, just to assess, and the sugar to know whether he's a diabetic or anything like that. So then we can proceed with surgery. FNAC, I would not do that. Okay, right, next.
Treatment.
So,
Excision including skin adjuvant to punctum using elliptical incision. Other method is incision avulsion of cyst wall.
yes. So here the main thing is, as I told you, it is only attached to the skin at the punctum side. So whenever you are excising, if you leave out the punctum, some amount of cyst wall might be attached. So you make an electrical incision around the punctum and remove the cyst in toto, because there will be a plane between the skin and the cyst. So I told you, it will be pinchable in other areas. So you will be able to go through the plane between the cyst wall and the skin, and you can remove the sebaceous completely. Okay. Incision avulsion is sometimes when you are taking it, it bursts out or the cyst wall is fractured, and you carefully peel off the cyst wall from the body. Then it is called as incision avulsion of the cyst wall. Right? Okay.
Differential diagnosis for sebaceous cysts.
Yeah, differential diagnosis you talked about. No, yes, tell me.
Lipoma, dermoid cyst.
Okay. Dermoid cyst.
Differences.
Okay. Right. So, what are all the types of dermoid there?
Yes, sir.
types of dermoids is. Somebody told me.
Sequestration,
Yes,
implantation,
yes,
tubulodermoid, and teratomatous.
very good. What is the difference between congenital dermoids are usually? What type of dermoids? Congenital dermoids?
Teratomatous.
No. Congenitals usually are sequestration dermoids.
Sequestrated dermoids.
Usually they happen in the midline. But where will you get the implantation dermoids?
Palm and toes.
Implantation dermoid is usually beneath the skin.
Everything beneath the skin only.
Sorry, sir. Like needle, hand.
Yes, mostly in the tailors, in the fingers. When you prick yourselves in the fingers, the skin from the surface epithelium is embedded, is penetrated into under the skin, and it forms a dermoid there. So it need not be in the midline in case of penetrate fingers. That is called as implantation. Usually they are acquired dermoids. And remember that midline is below the neck, it is midline. But in the face, the line of fusion is somewhere like this. It will be going like this, the external canthus, and it will come like this. And you have, these are all the sites where you can have, it is not exactly midline, it will go like, it go to the side of the nose. So this is where the maxillary process comes and fuses here. So you'll see it can form on the external canthus, internal canthus, side of the nose, and to the angle of the mouth. These are all the sites that a dermoid can form. Okay, right. Important thing is, remember this, when you have a punctum, you are most likely you are in sebaceous. When you don't have punctum only, the differential diagnosis comes. You don't have to have a differential diagnosis all the time. When you are not sure about the exact diagnosis, suppose the diagnosis is not 100% certain, then we offer differential diagnosis. What will be the findings? What findings will be there if it's lipoma? It will be soft, but fluctuation will be
Fluctuation.
absent. And then will it be transilluminated?
It can be, sir.
Usually it is not transilluminant. Suppose it's a very small lipoma and you use a bigger torch, it might, that is what they say, pseudo transillumination, pseudo fluctuation. Again, pseudo fluctuation means they say one plane it might be fluctuant, other plane it may not be fluctuant, all these things. Fluctuation by definition, it has to be done in two planes, it should be present. Then only it is fluctuation. It will be done. Now it is, if it is present in only one plane, it is not fluctuation. Sometimes they say why lipoma is fluctuant, sometimes pseudo fluctuation. They say in body temperature, the fat is in semi-solid state, so it can be fluctuant or something like, right? Okay, if it is a dermoid, what will be there? Transillumination will be present in dermoid or not?
No, sir.
Maybe or may not be. Again, if the sweat glands are there and the content is clear fluid, it might be transmitted. But mostly dermoid will not have clear fluid. It will have all sorts of the sebum, hair, everything will be there. Most likely transillumination will be negative only in case of dermoid. Okay.
Okay.
Again, specifically FNAC will not be done to rule out for dermoid. CT we do just in case of swelling on the scalp, and you have a bony indentation is also there. Then you want to know whether the dermoid is having intracranial extension, then CT may be of use. Otherwise, FNAC is not done for anything like that. Okay, for dermoid or anything. Lipoma, at least you can do FNAC, you can find out adipocytes, but sebaceous and dermoid, you don't do FNAC to diagnose the condition, right?
Okay.
Okay, now I think we have started today. What are all the complications we have talked about, right? What are all the, any doubts or anything like that? All of you can post in the chat box. Any doubts you want to clarify? I think it's more than an hour it has happened. I want to stop, we'll stop it here. Any doubts, Pa?
No, sir.
Yes, to start with, we have done this here today. We have done sebaceous only today. Tomorrow onwards, we can have specific cases. We'll go one by one. Hernia one day, thyroid, abdomen swellings, and then parotid, varicose veins, arterial diseases. These are all the things. So if we have 20, 25 cases are there, so one of you can, Vasant can discuss with me, whichever case you have, you start presenting, we can do it. Okay? Any doubts on this class today?
I think no, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any
Thank you so
feedback?
much.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.